10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Oh, hi. Hi, Bhavika. How are you?
Hi. Good, how are you?
Hello. All right. Yes, I hope I'm very good. Thanks. Good to see you. Um, all right, guys. Bhavika's on, and we're going to kickstart today's show. Before jump starting to it, just a quick introduction. My name is Vibha Kagzi, and I'm the founder and chief 22 of House of Experts. And as you guys know, we started the House of Experts series to bring to you experts from different domains who will share their journeys and through this conversation, throw light on their challenges, their successes, their triumphs, and their highs and lows. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing a very, very dear friend of mine. So this episode is special because Bhavika is someone I've known since I was a child, and I've seen her truly grow and build this business. When you talk about getting your hands dirty, Bhavika is really someone who sort of exemplifies that. Bhavika is going to talk about her life, so I'm going to keep this introduction brief. Just want to say that she's worked with over 400 clients in the branding, designing, and identity space. Big clients like the Taj and the Mahindras, medium-sized clients, and smaller clients. So Bhavika, just really excited to have you on the show, and I want to sort of have you
Excited to be
talk about
here.
your journey. So welcome to the show, Bhavika.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. So I can
Right.
start with maybe just some of the, sorry,
All
I
right.
think you're breaking.
So, gonna kickstart by asking Bhavika a little bit about. That's my favorite question, Bhavika. I always like to ask people about like their childhoods, because I feel like our childhoods really make us into the people we are. So, can you give us a little sneak peek into your childhood and what was it like? What kind of person were you? What were your parents like? Just a little sneak peek into your childhood.
Yeah, so was it truly meek, shy, still media shy person? My parents actually were, dad's from a business background, has his own business, very organized. Mom's an artist, so I think that blend somewhere has gotten me where I am today. Um, I started at the Bombay International School, so again, a very free-flowing curriculum, so always been of that mindset. Went to UWC after, but that came as a rude shock in the art space, uh, purely
So
because in India we're
the
taught.
UWC is this international boarding school that you attended. How did that happen? How did you think about going to UWC, and what was the environment in UWC like?
That's a really interesting. I'm glad you asked because we were the first batch actually, and there was absolutely the college didn't exist. Parents took a huge risk with a huge amount and decided to take admission in this international college with kids from 60, 70 different nationalities, your roommates from different continents.
Wow.
And it was a fantastic experience. We didn't have the college ready initially. We literally put bricks to build it. Um, and slowly, in the next couple of months, we moved up to college. We had international faculty. Great program. Art in specific is what I took as my higher level subject. We were the first IB batch in the country at that point. And yeah, it was a very interesting. When we were all put into these little rooms, which was really interesting. Where you had and one student from Poland, there was me, there was a student from New Zealand, and they said do what you feel like. So with the background that ICSE gives you, I went and started scribbling in one corner of the room with a pencil, whereas the student from Poland was now throwing buckets of paint all over the room. So it kind of opened up design, culture, art all together for me. After which I went to MS University in Baroda.
Okay.
And again, it was a bold step. So
Okay, so you
Yeah,
studied art
essentially,
at the high school. You started with taking art as a subject in the 12th grade itself.
sorry, I can't hear you, Vibha.
You started by taking art as a subject in the 12th grade, and then you went to Baroda, you mentioned.
Yes. So again, all the Indian students in UWC went abroad. I was the one student who stayed back in the country. I did know I wanted to do design and art somewhere, grew up with it at home. And yeah, I did know that India has such a rich culture and we tend to run away from it. But I'm a strongest design aesthetics culture, colors, brightness, form all lie within Indian culture. So a lot of inspiration from there all through. And post my graduation here, I did go to America for my master's after.
I think your network is fluctuating a bit, Bhavika. Okay, I caught the part about
Okay.
finishing up at Baroda, all the different colors you saw here in India, and then you chose to go for your master's to the US.
Yes, I did go to the Savannah College of Art and Design in the US, and I was there for a year and a half doing my master's, which was a fantastic blend between the Indian and the Western philosophies in design, kind of brought me to this minimal design with maximum from India. And that's essentially the principle I feel like I follow till date in design. So that was the study journey. And yeah, my parents were really bold. Now that I have a little daughter, I keep wondering how they kept sending me away. I don't think I have the heart to, but they did. And
Okay,
I'm
great. All
eternally.
right. So yeah, we have a question here from Chrisanne who says, "What inspired you to start on your own?" So what happened? So you finish college, you get this really strong foundation, studying art, literally 10th grade, 12th grade, undergraduate, and this postgraduate degree. So it seems like academically, you know, in terms of skill and technique, you really made sure you had your essentials in order. What happened next? How did this move?
I came back to India because I knew I wanted to come back. Uh, everyone, I mean, that was something that I was quite sure of from the day I left. So I came back home and then I switched. To answer the question, I wasn't inspired, I was pushed. But I did switch 5 jobs in 6 months, had a crazy beginning. I was at one job for a couple of months and then switched several. I realized I just wasn't cut out to work. I was quite terrible at every job that I was at. Late hours, parents were not comfortable with. Overall, I just felt like I was. India had moved from hand to computer in that year in design specifically. So I felt like I did know the softwares. I saw an opportunity there, and I was quite hell bent on doing something on my own. But not at that point. At that point, I was just quitting jobs and sitting at home till my parents were ready to throw me out of the house. So
Okay,
they
so you,
reached a
you tried your
point.
hand at a couple of jobs and somehow they weren't working for you. Okay, then what
Yeah.
happens?
So I was essentially sitting at home on a couch, and one day just got cornered by my parents, and they were literally like, either you get a job or you leave home. And at that point, uh, I was cursing them, but now I am grateful again for what happened. And I wasn't ready to go back to a job. So then I got thinking. My dad and mom both thought that it was ridiculous for me to start a company with almost no experience. I was all of 24 years old. Decided that that's it wasn't working. So I actually went to my nanny, who coincidentally I was talking to, and I said, "This is what I want to do. I want to start a company." And she turned around and said, "Sure, I'll loan you the money for the first computer, but you got to give it
Wow.
back to me in 3 months." And it kind of threw me off completely, saying, "How would I ever do that?" And that's how the journey actually began. So yeah.
Okay, wow. So you got your first loan from your nanny, get enough money to buy a computer, and then you sort of started out solo. It was just you.
It was just me. I got a DTP operator who was an intern, and then as a few months went, I had around 6 interns from JJ School on my bed behind me because we had one
Wow.
computer and we were 7 of us in a room. That too just for summer, and then they'd go back to college. I don't even know why they were with me at that point, but I think everyone was excited by the idea. I didn't have a company name. I got that after. So yeah, it all kind of then just started as it went. And after that, dad, mom, of course, thought it's high time. Dad gave me a space in the office, and then things took
And
off
then
from there.
okay, great. All right. Wow, quite an incredible start there. Of course, very classic entrepreneur, bootstrapped, took the loan. I hope you paid the loan back to your nanny. I hope that's over and done
Oh, so
with.
I must tell you, she actually called me every 15 days to check on that. So that
Oh,
really
wow.
pushed me not to spend money and has taught me till date to kind of hold on and not overspend and kind of keep your numbers in check. It's been a great learning. So yes, I did return that loan within 3 months.
Okay, great. All right, I have some comments here. Krisan, great family support. Of course, Krisan sounds like great family support, but it came with a carrot and a stick. Huh? She had to pay back the loan. Tanya Bali saying, Bhavika, you're amazing. Gaurangi Jadhav, an amazing mentor and the best guide. Gonna pick up Gauri Devi there. Hello, lovelies. Bhavika, warmest soul by Sagar Chapal. Okay, picking up a question here from Manoj Gursahani. So, what happens after that? Can you share key challenges you faced as an entrepreneur? So, what was the journey like? How did it sort of evolve from there?
From there, essentially, worked several years, started out, got married, had was very fortunate again to get an extremely supportive set of in-laws and husband. Never stopped me from working a day, pushed me to work. Continued working. From there, we kind of,
So you went from like these 6, 7 interns, sitting
yeah.
in one bed. How did you then go and develop a team? How did you go build your client base? Like, how did that happen?
So I essentially worked on a retainer model. So whenever retainers came in, I would then employ more people because I was again all about the safety and to make sure I wasn't over budgeting. So that
Sure.
was something I really took care of. And honestly, anyone who's starting out, keep your costs low. I think I worked with that and that really helped me grow. As retainers grew, I hired certain number of interns, certain number of employees, and then we got a bigger space. And slowly it took off from there. When it came to clients, we've not been someone, as a team, we have never been applying for awards. We haven't been in media, none of that. So essentially word of mouth and a lot of family and friends just spreading the word. No, I mean, don't get me wrong, families of clients spreading the word. I don't
Sure.
work with family and friends as I feel like it's really
Okay. So
complicated.
it seems like obviously, success bred success, and you built your client base essentially through your work. Okay, terrific. Let's take on here a question from Ibu Gonzalez, who's like, what goes on behind building a brand? Okay, that's a great question. Something I want to get into also, like, what is a brand? As an expert, how do you guys even define a brand? Let's start just at the very basic. And
So I
Bhavika, you don't
researched
mind,
this.
move a little bit towards the side because I think the text is covering your face. Just move a little bit. Yeah, perfect.
Better?
Brilliant. Yeah.
Okay. So I do teach branding and strategy at ISD, and that's when I did a lot of research into how I define a brand.
Sure.
And I decided that a brand to me is a promise, and branding is a promise kept. So essentially, branding to me is everything about a company, an institution, a product, a service that trickles down through the institution. So it's
Okay,
not about a
let me
color.
capture that again. I think that was just beautifully phrased. So you said a brand is a promise and branding is a promise kept.
Kept. Yeah. So
Okay,
what kind of
that's beautiful. I just love that. I love the sound of that. Okay, terrific.
So that was something I've narrowed down and kind of worked with all through. And yeah, so essentially it's not just the color or the icon or the font, but it's even the peon's behavior when you enter an office on how he greets you. I think it's an entire philosophy, personality. So we tend to personify a brand. So what we do with most of our clients is then say that if this was a human being, what would they actually be? What would be the personality of the brand? What would be the traits? What would be the qualities, the positives, the negatives? If it's a food brand, that's actually a junk brand. What would be the negatives of that character? And then we kind of even
So you're saying
sketch
you
that
sort of
out.
animate, like you humanize a product. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, whether it's a product, a service, a company, we tend to give it a personality before we get into working on the brand, because then that gives it an entire character board.
Ah, wow. Okay, very interesting.
And
Okay,
I
this is
strongly feel a brand is your baby, so you're kind of nurturing it from there.
Okay, fine. Brand is your baby. A brand is a promise. Okay, terrific. Can we go? Yeah, I know, Miraki. Interesting, right? Personifying a brand. I find this quite fascinating. Someone else's Shrishti Banka says profound line. I agree, Shrishti. This is really profound. I'm just loving the discussion. Okay, so tell us the process. Yeah, if someone comes to you with a product or a service, what do you guys do? How do you sort of break down? Like, I have so many guests here from very, very different fields. How do you even start thinking about it? So if a client walks into the door, can you just walk us through the entire evolution of how you go from a problem to a solution? How do you come up with a brand solution?
Sure, let me take a live case study because I think it might be the best way to take this forward. And I'll do the ups and the downs that we went through. We pitched for St. Regis around, it was Palladium at the time, 7 or 8 years ago, and got the account, but with another two agencies on board also. Um, Worked with them for a year, had a lot of back and front, developed systems with them because I feel like any client you sign on, you are developing systems with them. If there's work daily, brand questionnaires, sending them because uh, a single client versus a hotel, both are different, and I'll take one at a time. But a hotel, essentially, there was a lot of management, a lot of hierarchy. So how to work through that, how to not increase the number of changes you are making on a creative to save time for both. So a lot of back and forth happened, and we developed an entire system which was working wonderfully. By then, it changed to St. Regis, and the entire management changes, and you're again
Right.
changing hands. At that point, they asked the three agencies that were there to pitch, and they were ready to throw us out because our systems were made them work too. So that was a bit of effort on their part where they had to detail out things a lot more for us since we tend to ask a lot of questions. Like I said, because if I'm trying to personify a brand or even an event, if it's a poster for Diwali, I still need details on what you're serving because I want to go into that depth and want to
Okay.
kind of
So,
give them
so, so
thought
just
through
to
design.
just to understand the entire flow. So if the first thing you do if someone comes to you, you say, "Give me the personality traits of your brand." Is that the starting point?
We have a brand questionnaire, which I share with them. And that
Okay.
does have that as one of the questions. There are multiple questions on how you define your brand, competitors, target audience, unique selling points, and yes, personality. There are also just kind of illustrations saying which illustration do you like? And is
Oh,
it a dotty one? Is it an abstract one? Is it a geometric one? Which kind of gives me perspective again into the thought process. Often people are not able to tell you exactly what their brand is. And I realize briefs don't work, which is why we developed this questionnaire and work backward. Once we get that filled in, we essentially share with them a mind map, which is just words like a spider web, and a mood board of images that we perceive their brand to be.
okay.
And that's step one into kind of getting mindsets matching for both brands. And the minute the client is like, hey, that word doesn't fit my brand at all, I've already saved myself time while creating the creative.
I see.
And that's when we sit with the client and really brainstorm, maybe do a workshop with the team and just make sure everyone is aligned in that thought process. And
Okay.
once we do that, then we move into design.
Okay. All right. So starts with a questionnaire. You try to identify brand traits, the market they're going after, the unique selling points of the brand. I mean, you understand the entire landscape first. Then
So
you
what
create what you're calling a mood board.
correct.
Okay.
And what basically all this draws us to the insight and why the brand should exist. So the
Okay,
minute
great.
we have an insight, we take it forward from there.
Okay, terrific. So let's go back to the example about the Saint Regis and all that. So what sort of insight did you get from that? And like, how did you sort of conceptualize their identity and their brand basis this philosophy?
Okay, so that was not a brand we essentially developed. That was a
Okay.
brand where we had a lot of issues, almost got thrown out, came back in,
Okay.
dealt with the team, worked with the team, sort of, and we were, I mean, I think we're greatest of friends today. A lot of them are on the chat also. So, yeah, so that's that rapport. When it comes to one particular client, there's a client we have in the UAE where we did have a lot of differences because the first time they came to us, the company is called the Goodness Company, and they wanted their brand to be good for you. So essentially, they kept things that are good for you. So and the colors associated with goodness, natural, organic, were green, browns, and shades of that.
Sure.
At that point, I was hell-bent on staying away from those colors because I thought it's way too common and everyone was doing it. So we thought about what colors would work, and we decided to convince them to go with a black and white. At that, they were 100% that we didn't understand the brand and wanted us to leave. So they were like, "You guys don't get it. We are not a black and white." When definitely.
So why? What was the thought process? So as a layperson, if I think organic, I think green and brown.
Absolutely.
You obviously didn't think green and brown. So what is the thought process? How do you guys, how do you think out? It's just so abstract to me.
Yeah, so it was again, we put a mood board together, we put a mind map together, and we thought about what are clean colors to us. What is clean eating? What are clean? And what is black and white? Black and white is there is no cheat in it. It is essentially either it's black or white. There is no gray space, and that's how we got to that color palette. But we decided that it's still products that are good for you. So the bag was, and the handbags, the carry bags, outer packaging was all black and white. And the inner packaging was bright colors. So it does good to you is what we wanted to sort of convey.
Okay. So the black and white sort of symbolize no gray area. It's either good or bad. Okay,
Absolutely.
great. And then the color sort of signified the happiness or the joy that will come out of these
that
products.
the product gives you. And every product actually spoke to you. So the bigger carry bag said the bag, big bag of happiness. The Nutella jars, for example, said the jar with joy. So every product was named and actually spoke to you. And that was the interesting part of that project.
Since we're on the colors, I have a question here for Miraki Wellbeing, who says, how do you pick colors for a brand? Is there a process?
Thank you for that question, Miraki. Yes, I absolutely love picking colors, and this is something we've been stuck with for many, many, many years. A little secret, we essentially pick colors from nature. I do think that's the most beautiful way to do it, and you have every color. I mean, if I want a shade of green, I have a billion. So often when we go for treks or I'm traveling, we were in Kajat the other day. Wherever I am, essentially, I'm taking photographs or the girls are taking pictures. I tell my entire team to do this all the time. And we actually color pick because I feel nature matches colors so beautifully, and a blue and an orange in a sunset actually work so wonderfully together. And it's something you would not put. That being said, when I use a blue and an orange shade directly myself, it might not be as beautiful. But when it's picked from a sunset, they just work really, really well together. So yeah, I often revert to nature and nature picks. I think this also comes a lot from mom because she's been painting forever and her watercolors sort of have always been nature. So I think there's a strong influence there.
Okay, great. Okay, Miraki, I hope that helps answer your question. I love that answer. So you pick your palette from nature's palette, and that in itself is infinite shades of every shade. Okay, awesome.
That's the work for me.
Okay, awesome answer. Love it. I'm going to pick up another question here from Surbi Samdani, who says, how can I build and develop my brand as an independent musician in India? So as an independent freelancer, as a musician, how should she go about planning her identity?
It's something that your identity needs to depict who you are. When you decide to use the fonts, the colors, whatever you decide to use for your identity, it's got to reflect who you are. The minute it's honest and it's memorable, it's something that will stay relevant for a longer time. I just feel whenever there's a memorable brand, I'll give you an example. We did this with a hairdresser, and we decided to just keep it as her name, which was a very simple, short, catchy name. It was Sarah. And then sort of worked with her on developing colors and things that she did. And she used to often streak her hair, so we streaked the logo at that point. And so just something that's memorable, catchy, relevant, and something that sort of holds longer. It will hold a lot longer if it is.
So for the hairdresser, would you go with the traits of the hairdresser, or would you go with the traits of the hairdresser's work? Or do you see that fusing? Like, is it the individual or is it the individual's work?
I don't feel like it comes together. So the individual's work reflects the individual's personality, but definitely the personality would take I would put it above the work because the work will keep changing depending on trends and you don't want your logo to change. Now with social media, the lifespan of a logo is very, very short. It used to be over 100 years earlier. If you see the Indian Merchants Chamber logo, which we've just changed, it's a 100-year-old logo. And now the lifespans are 5 to 10 years with social media, with dynamic logos, with the amount logos are changing. So movement in logo, dynamism, and space for change, I think is really, really important now and relevant.
Okay, great. I'm glad you touched upon social media. I have a question here from Shalini Goenka who says, in today's age with social media around, how does branding work? It's such a broad spectrum. How do you handle this? Okay, great question. Thank you, Shalini, for that question.
That's a lovely question too. And it's just about consistency. Again, going back to being memorable, I think that comes with consistency. With every brand we develop a brand manual. And I think that's something that's very, very pertinent, even if it's just a musician or a hairdresser. A brand manual is a little book, 10 to 15 pages. You can go a lot deeper and broader for companies. But initially, a short book that explains your primary colors, your secondary colors, your palettes, your fonts, and that helps in consistency. So if I see the same colors being reflected on screen and in print, over a period of time, I start relating that to the brand. And the same happens with different fonts. So different grid structures. Today, no matter what Google does, just that color, they keep changing their logo, it's dynamic, but just that color play, the spacing, and you know it's Google. So Cadbury's can remove the text, but if they have the two jars pouring the milk, you still know it's Cadbury.
Okay, so you're saying regardless of the platform, the brand should stay consistent in terms of like some elements of the brand should stay consistent, and that's how you form the identity?
Absolutely. It could be icons, it could be fonts, it could be colors, it could be whatever you feel strongest holds relevance. And that sort of just keeps the brand alive because, and the minute there's a memory factor, the chance of it dying out are a lot less.
Okay, so the memory is another word that's coming up a lot. So make the brand memorable is what you're saying. Okay,
Absolutely.
Great. I'll pick up a question here since we're still on colors and the brand, and then I'll move to another area. Rajalakshmi asking, are there color groups that are preferred for a certain type of product or industry? This is a very interesting question.
Yeah,
is there anything like that?
I'm not of the belief. There are people of the belief. I'm not. I do feel like, again, it depends on the product, on the personality of the product, and how you depict the color. What kind of content works? Design, of course, now goes hand in hand with content at all times. And that's why we focus on both as strongly. And I do feel like it's very important for content and design to go hand in hand. And then color is something that kind of supports whatever messaging you're willing to give, and people start relating that color to that personality that you're assigning to it.
Okay.
If I'm making sense.
Sure. Okay. So essentially you're saying that, that Rajalakshmi, I think the answer is no. The color groups and all, I think she's saying, are fluid. It's more about making the brand sort of stand for the values and trying to make it memorable.
So there are, sorry to interrupt, but there are definitely colors that define. So blue goes for trust, orange goes for more fiercely, red goes for more dangerous. There are definitely colors, and every color has its attribute, but I do feel you can swing it and make it work with different color combinations, if that helps answer it better.
Okay, great. Honestly, that example you gave about the black and white, and that should brought the point home a lot. Okay, one more question on colors, and Miraki, taking your question again. What works more, the color or the font type? So are you guys as brand, are you guys always struggling between the spectrum of color, font, the name, layout?
Yeah, it's a family. It's like the mother, the father, the brother, the sister. It all kind of fits in. It's a jigsaw puzzle. So it depends. I don't think one or the other holds more importance. Color does have a very, very strong memory factor. So we do spend a lot of time on finalizing that on the color palette.
Okay. All right. So we're coming back to memory. I'm going to remember this from your conversation. Okay. Switching gears here. Question from Roro311012. As an entrepreneur, how do you balance your work with home and kid? Okay. So this is about Trisha and you.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit about that. How are you balancing? I mean, I know you had the baby and you still continued working throughout that phase. So a little bit about being a woman and managing, your company and your family life.
Um, have had incredible support. So, firstly, I honestly, it's been fabulous. In-laws, parents, everyone. But that being said, I was extremely driven. Didn't want to stop working. I had 9 months of bed rest with my daughter. I worked up to the day of my wedding. All through the 9 months after a C-section, started working the next day. And at 40 days, my child was in a car seat with a meeting at a meeting with me, sitting by my side. So yeah, she went along with me, and I sort of, I didn't bottle feed her. I did not give her top feed. I kind of decided she needs to be with me and continued working. And they were both my babies. They went hand in hand.
Okay, so you had two
So
babies at the same time. Okay. All right, Roro, I hope that answers your question. I think it's just talking a little bit about the tenacity and drive she had. And I honestly, Bhavika, I've seen you, through this phase of your life, and I'm going to attest to the drive you and determination you've had. It's been really incredible. We'll take a question here from Deven Shah. Uh, who has been your motivator in your life? Okay, great. Paraphrasing that, like, what inspires you? What inspires you? What motivates you?
that's my dad to begin
Okay.
with.
All right, so that, okay.
um, yeah, essentially how, I mean, I've just seen both my parents work tirelessly. And I saw the same with after marriage. I've just seen both of them. There's not a Saturday my mom paints, she paints till late, I mean, late into the night. Dad's extremely organized. It's kept me very motivated. My husband's a permanent motivation. He's always pushing me. So, yeah, I feel like I've been very fortunate. Friends, family, it's been, yeah, there's nothing specific, but something's kept me going. When I'm falling back, there's enough people to like beat me with a stick and say, no, it's time to go to work.
Okay,
And
so
that
lots
happens
of
all the time. Yeah.
okay, great. Lots of sort of positive primary influences in your life.
A lot of beating. A lot of
Lot of
beating when I
things.
want to sit back. Because there's been phases, I mean, very often when I wake up and say, okay, time to shut Beyondesign or time to not go to work. And that's only natural with everything you go through in a woman's life. And, but yeah, it's no one's let me, even if I wanted to.
Okay, great. That's super candid, and thanks for sharing. So,
Yeah.
as an entrepreneur, I feel you. I do have
Yeah.
mornings, even now after 10 years, when I get up in the morning, I'm just like, I'm just gonna shut
Yeah,
this.
we're
Like,
done.
it's so overwhelming, and then
Yeah.
obviously something inside you keeps you going.
Yeah, yeah. And you never have a day off, right? After you're an entrepreneur. It's a 24-hour, 365-day job. So
Yeah, I look back
that's
at
the
my
love
days at
spirit.
work, and yeah, you
Yeah,
can't take a day off. You're
absolutely.
always on.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Picking up on a comment here from Jinesh Mehta. Wonderful endeavor to support NGOs, your way of giving back to society, professional and more kudos. Okay, so I thank you, sir, for your comment. But Bhavika, for the benefit of us who don't know about this, could you sort of share a little bit about your work with? I know you did a lot of work with the rural communities as well. So a little bit about the rural communities and then the NGO that sir is talking about, please.
Sure. So essentially, since we started the company, I think 2 or 3 years into it, and now we're 15 years into Beyondesign, we do adopt an NGO every year. So we adopt
Wow.
an NGO, and we don't, I'll be honest, we spend around 4 or 5 months with them, handhold them, create all their marketing material, and then try to get them on their own feet. I don't hold on to one NGO because I just feel we have so many, and how do you possibly um, work with so many. So what we try and do our little bit by hand holding them, creating their marketing material, cleaning up their communication, and sort of then letting them go forth with their branding. So we've done that with quite a few NGOs. We've recently also worked with a Maharashtra women's entrepreneur organization called Marvin, funded by the United Nations. And here we did a lot of packaging where again very simple. Here we thought through, ultimately they were going to throw their masalas in a plastic bag, so guiding them on how to do that, and just sticker design for them, but at the same time how the sticker should look, sorry, attractive enough for somebody on Amazon to want to buy it. So we just sent them stickers they could stick on initially, and then now slowly getting them into more sustainable packaging. So yeah, definitely keep working with different institutes. I do feel like we are very fortunate, so it's time to do that little bit back, no matter what, at all times.
Wow. So you adopt one NGO a year.
Yeah. So we handhold them for 5, 6 months of the year and create whatever we can for them in that time.
Wow. I mean, honestly, with that, you say you're making it sound like I just take them on for 3, 4 months, but I mean, essentially
No,
in
it's a
those three,
long
four
time. Yeah.
months, if you're able to give an NGO a brand, a logo, an identity, basic marketing collateral, you're essentially setting them up for the next 10 years. It's not.
Yeah,
It's a
I need
four-month
to set them up.
intervention.
Yeah. They're the ones who
Yeah.
need the marketing material because they need to raise funds more than anybody else. So
Wow.
essentially, yeah, we set them up, we give templates, and then we also suggest they hire an in-house designer who we speak to, train, and then he can take it forward from there.
Wow, very impressive.
So,
Amazing.
yeah.
Very, very inspiring. Picking up another question from Shalini Goenka, who says, for setting up a branding company, do you yourself have to have a creative mind, or can you find good talent that's available? That's a great question, Shalini. Thank you. So,
Yeah.
where are you on the spectrum of like all the ideas are sort of sprouting out of your brain versus, collective teamwork? Like, I love this. This is a great question.
Yeah, it's a great question and it's a really tough question. I don't know is my answer, but essentially, I do feel you do need to have the creative background or at least the eye, because after a point when you are an entrepreneur and running the business, you have very little time to physically go back and design yourself. Between accounts and marketing and managing, it's very, very difficult to sort of go back and design. But at the same time, I don't till date let any design leave the studio without me looking at it.
Oh, wow.
Because it is your responsibility. It is something you have taken on personally, and it's not fair to kind of just because everyone associates the brand with you when you're an entrepreneur. So I still don't let that happen, and it's important I kind of tweak whatever I think is necessary in design before it goes out.
So you do give it sort of like the final touch and the final look, and you sign off on it.
If needed. A lot of the girls have been with me a really long time. I have a fabulous all girls team since a lot of the girls were with me 10 years ago, then they've gotten married, had children, and actually come back to work with me, which has been a very rewarding feeling because then they're comfortable and they know it's a good place to be.
Okay,
So,
great.
yeah.
So a lot of that initial sort of rigorous training you had in art and design has obviously you still use it, huh? It sounds like you're
Absolutely.
still okay. Anything you could share about like from an academic perspective, like maybe a concept you picked up at Savannah that you still see relevant in your work? I'm just trying to see what is the fusion between academic theory and practice, if any. So are you seeing that? Are you seeing a correlation?
I do, and there were a lot of things that I actually did learn at Savannah that I feel didn't come by anywhere else later in my learning. So a simple thing like, to any format or any magazine or brochure we design, to sort of create a grid and break the grid. And you only break a grid after creating a grid. So layout design, things like that have been applicable. Another thing I did was my thesis on semiotics, which is essentially signage and signage systems and infographic design. So that's something I have applied a lot across the board. I do feel people read very, very, very little. So how do you retain attention and how do let them continue reading without losing them, or at least convey your point? So we have started doing a lot of infographic work internally, even for CSR reports, annual reports, legal reports. Yeah, so we're trying to reduce content and move to infographics because I feel that's a lot stronger. And that was something
Okay,
I did
great.
my thesis in. So
Wow. So, I mean, you did your thesis, what, like 15 years ago, 15, 20 years ago?
18 years, yeah, 17, 18.
Yeah, 17, 18 years ago. So very forward thinking, huh? Because obviously today we're all stuck in this world of less words, more imagery. The
Yeah,
millennial mindset is just they don't have the tenacity to read, and
yeah.
therefore visuals become even more interesting. Okay, great.
Yeah, it was
Uh,
actually, sorry, I'm going to interrupt, but it was a really sweet story on how that started, and it wasn't really me. I just saw a blind man walking a really long distance every day. So I said, uh, without text, how would he get somewhere? If somebody, gave him in braille, gave him images. And that's how I took up semiotics in my thesis. So yeah,
oh
that was in
wow.
Savannah. Yeah.
Wow. Amazing. Great story there. Going to take a question here from BD's 57. How does one build 1,000 crore brand in the medical industry? BD's, that's a great question. And if Bhavika's got an answer for this, then I'm going to switch careers. So maybe not like 1,000 crores.
I am going to tell you to invite him as a speaker because he has just done that.
Okay, great.
It's my uncle, and he has built the brand from scratch, a lot over 1,000 crores, and sold it. So that's his.
So in general, if not 1,000, or like, like how does one go about, since it's your uncle and you know his journey, maybe you could share a little bit about that and like how you came in and how does branding and identity play its role?
So I do think that the first buy is always essentially branding and packaging now in today's world. And what's happening is that's in a product specific area. In a service, it's your first impression, what you're conveying through your presentations. And I do think that first impact is very, very strong in the mind. In anything that I am trying to work on and any brands we're trying to build, we're trying to stay with the 3 R's that we've just developed for the brand, which are real, relatable, and relevant. And I think if you stick to that very honest base, your initial branding does help pick up your company. But post that, I don't think it's a phenomenon of branding. It's a phenomenon of the entire company structure. But it does take you a long way in actually getting the whole company to be cohesive, to have a similar mindset. Branding is not just about what is created on the computer and handed over, but it's little brand books which kind of explain people, even when you employ someone, a little employee book, which we've done now for SR, for the Birlas. It's essentially something that makes you feel one with the brand. So it outlines the traits and it sort of makes you feel like you're part of the company. And then you start imbibing those brands when you are talking to people about your company. So if it's a medical rep on a field, for example, he should also be able to portray the same feeling that the owner has, and the same passion needs to kind of flow through. So
okay, I think that's again a terrific insight. Because all of us think of branding, as laymen, we think of branding as what will appeal to my customer. This is what my brand stands for, and this is what my customer is going to listen to. But I think what you just talked about is even internally, it's what ties your company together. It's the value system that your brand sort of embodies. And the example about what that salesman at the field level takes, to the customer, which you have no control over sitting in your sort of tower office, is your brand and identity and the values that you've sort of embodied in that brand. Okay, that's a terrific insight, Bhavika.
I strongly feel it's important to have your house in order before you go outside. So essentially, your purpose, your value, your passion, your culture kind of needs to trickle down through the entire organization. And then that's going to be reflected on the outside because there's several touch points then on the outside.
Okay, great, terrific. Pick up a question here from Deven Shah. How do you retain your clients and ensure that they come back to you? This is great, Deven. Thank you for that question. Yeah. All of us are wondering how to do that as entrepreneurs. Bhavika, tell us your story.
That's a good question. I have worked with 2 generations across in 15 years already in most of my clientele, which has been very, very rewarding. And it feels really, really good to sort of know that people come back to you. They have become extended friends and family. I do connect with them. I think the interactions are so close because, again, like I said, their brand is their baby, and now I am kind of associated with that. So just coming around a full circle, it's essentially who they are and they're so passionate about. And the minute you get that involved with them, you build an association with family. So it's happened across the board. It's happened. So I've worked with Vasundhara, who's now become a dear friend over the years, when she did Ice Stone Factory many years ago. And now she introduced me to her dad. And usually it's been the younger generation because they're open to understanding branding and spending a lot more on it. And then they've introduced me to their parents or the older generation, and we've worked with the bigger companies and then gone back to the younger generation and so forth. So
you're saying the key to this is just sort of keeping the conversations going. You're saying keeping the connectivity. And you also spoke a little bit about just sort of nurturing that bond. Is that what you're saying? Like, what is the... Okay. Okay, and you
It
talked a
it
little bit about
becomes a
like
relationship. Sort of.
the relationship. Okay, and I like that angle about like the brand is their baby, and now you're sort of
Yeah, essentially a
caretaker to
part
their
of it.
baby, so you're part of their
Yeah.
whole upbringing of their child in many ways.
Yeah, and
Okay,
we
terrific.
treat, I mean, whether it's a huge brand or just an invite. So we did the CR cricket rating invitation card, a really small project 14 years ago, I want to say. And last 14 years, we've been doing it over and over again. So it's become our baby in the process. And now they
Sure.
don't want to brief anybody else on the concept or anything because we're so close to it. So year over year, they just call and say, get the invite done. So even
Sure.
briefing becomes a lot easier when you're in sync with the companies that you're working with.
Okay, so you finally you know the baby so well that you can sort of
Yeah,
nurture and sort of caretake just as well as the parents would. Okay, awesome.
I hope
Because
so.
this question from R Contra, what do you look for when scouting for talent to work for you? Okay, this is a great question. How do you team build? What do you look for? You know, what's worked for you in the past? What hasn't worked for you in the past even?
Uh, it's a tough question, but I'm all about the trust. I overdo it, I have to admit, but I tend to hire, I don't look at work as much as the actual interaction. When I'm comfortable with someone, I do feel like the work will kind of build. And I did learn a lot of hard lessons. I have had designers who have joined me, taken my entire team and started new companies. I have had designers from my office who have uh, taken our designs and sold them as their own, whether it's wedding
Wow.
cards or invites. So we've had the terrible experiences. But that's not made me not trust the team that I have. I just think it's really unfair to kind of let that happen. So we're an open book. Everything is out there. I do trust the team wholeheartedly. Today, if one of my designers designs a logo and I don't like it, I still send it to the client if they are sure of it because they could have understood the client better than I have. So, and I hired them because I trust them. So I kind of allow my designers to grow with the company and so, yeah. And looking for talent with God's grace, we haven't had to. We get a lot of resumes quite regularly, and we've just sort of again more personality that comes through if the email is written with a little softness, more passion. We've looked for passion and design. So I've had designers who are terrible and they will tell you that and joined me when they've joined me, like the aesthetic has just been, and now they look at their own work and laugh. But yeah, today they handle brands independently. And have their own
You
studios
brought them
also.
on board purely on the basis of the passion they exhibited.
Absolutely, yeah, I'm all about that.
All about passion.
So
Okay,
yeah,
passion and
and a lot
trust.
of my girls have started their own companies. I'm very happy to guide them, help them, and yeah, that's just how it's been.
Okay, great. I hope that answered your question, our contra. It's interesting, you know, you spoke about trust, Bhavika, and I, you know, because I remember reading something from Jack Welch, who built General Electric, right? And you know, he spoke about value versus skill in terms of hiring, and he said, "I will always pick value over
Value
skill."
over. Yeah,
Know,
that's
is exactly what you just talked about because
yeah,
he said the value system I can't teach. It's either in you or not, but skill I have, and I'll give you my skill. You know,
yeah. I'm happy to share that. But I
and yeah,
need
you
the
seem
values and things.
very generous about that. Okay,
So
our contra seems
yeah,
happy with your answer. A few more comments. Shreya Jain says that's so inspiring. Shalini says I love this. Working with so many NGOs, what a great concept. Abel says wow. I have lots of hearts and thumbs ups and all that. Surbi says that's really inspiring. Okay, guys, thank you for all the interactions and the boosting. So let's take another question from Shalini again. Okay, what kind of work hierarchy do you follow in terms of roles and responsibilities? Okay, that's a good question. So how do you sort of structure a team in design and branding, right? What are the different roles that you have, and are there sort of finite roles, or does it all blend into like how does it work?
um, yeah. So we're a very small team. We're 10 designers, and we have 20 to 30 active clients at a time. So it is a very tight, and I don't intend to expand that because like I said, I look into every project personally, and there's only so much you can do when you want to give quality. We even stop taking on clients when we think we're full, or we give really extended timelines. But to answer the question, we have no hierarchy. my junior most designer could possibly be the most talented and take on the senior most project. And this goes for interns. We recently designed a logo for Parkinson's playing cards. A very exciting project for us because he wanted, like Xerox has become for photocopying, he wanted Parkinson's to become for playing cards, like the next
Right.
big thing. And my intern did it, and she did a fantastic job. So I didn't let a designer touch it, and it went through. And today she has a fabulous project. So we've never been about hierarchy because I don't think design is something that comes with hierarchy. It comes. There is a lot of growth with exposure. You can definitely get better, but at the same time, it could be an inbuilt talent, and you could be just phenomenal right at the beginning. And I think opportunity is necessary. So I try my best to give it.
Okay, great. So a manager who sort of will identify talent, nurture it, and not look at hierarchies. Okay, I love that, Bhavika.
It make me look
Something that
a lot
resonates with
better
me
than it is.
completely. No, I completely buy this. I get interns every year, and I see the interns sometimes putting out much better work than all of us in the office, including myself.
Same.
And
Yeah,
it's a very
absolutely.
humbling experience. Actually, we learn so much from our interns. So I'm glad we're absolutely on the same page here. I have another question here from Shreya Jain. It's a long question. Okay, she's talking about authenticity. Okay, great. This is a good question. So, how do you make sure that your designs are authentic and reflect the client's identity in the best way possible? So, okay, I'm going to paraphrase this. Authenticity versus, sellable. How do you find yourself in that spectrum? Whether, is this going to be more appealing and sort of is the consumer just going to like it versus is this truly authentic and sort of stands by the brand's value? Have you faced this sort of dilemma, and where do you stand on this?
We face it all the time. And I would take authenticity in two different ways. One is essentially clients often want path-breaking design and want something very different, but don't want to take the risk. So
So
that is where I get.
everyone walks in saying, Bhavika, give me something different, path breaking, but I'm not going to take any chances.
But it should look exactly like Apple. So that's essentially what we get. Yeah, no, everybody comes in with exactly what they want, but it has to be different. So that is, it's a lot of workshops, discussions, mind maps, mood boards that kind of get us in between the balance of the two. And we sort of, when we start design, I essentially don't allow the girls to reference on the computer, and neither do I for my first round, because I do feel there is so much inspiration out there that things start looking like copies, which is very, very important to me, and that's not an option at all. So we essentially start everything by hand. Everything is sketched out, concepts are written out, and post that we go to the computer. And we did this for a great example is Qualia. If you've seen Rahul Akedkar's new restaurant, we've actually hand painted the logo, the pizza box, and I had a very talented designer who actually put everything together, and the macaroon box, it's all hand painted, so it definitely doesn't look like it's a copy or it's not picked off anywhere or anything of the sort. So if in fact to just get the cue of the circle right, I think I've done thousands of circles hand painted with a calligraphic brush. So it's also fun and kind of keeps the hand design part alive.
Okay.
So,
Okay. All right. So that level of detailing and maintaining the authenticity,
we
you
try.
sort of deter them from looking at similar logos in the industry or that sector.
Also, once we finish doing the logo, we still put it in a Google image search because often you've not copied it, but it does exist. It's
Mhm.
inspired you maybe 10 years ago and it's stuck in your head and it's in your memory and you've sort of recreated it. Or it could be someone who's copied it, and it's my responsibility as an entrepreneur to kind of see that that doesn't go out to the client. So we Google image search every single logo we do and make sure, and every single design we do and make sure that it's not existing already, because that kind of would take away from the authenticity and the brand we have built for ourselves today.
Sure,
So,
sure. Okay, wow.
yeah,
Okay, so that level of sort of second guessing yourself and just
oh,
being like, let me make sure that
it's
even my
important.
own memory is not sort of playing games with me. Wow, love that. Going to take this comment here from Kejriwal Nipun, who says, my wedding card remains the most memorable work, Bhavika. Lots of love. Thanks, Nipun. That's very sweet. Nilüfer says, good to hear this. I think she's happy that you're maintaining the authenticity. Okay, as we're nearing the end of this, Bhavika, just quick words of advice for someone who'd like to follow in your footsteps, right? Someone who wants to create a branding design identity. organization, or just sort of build their own.
Yeah.
Some tips, just sort of final closing words.
Be honest, be communicative, be real, and I feel the work just comes in. There's space for everyone. It's a fantastic industry to be in. The balance in design, minimal design, communicative design. I think it's not about decoration anymore. It's about strong communication. That's where the world is going. Everyone has less time on hand. They have it's a quick glimpse and it's got to convey your message. So strong message oriented communication and just be passionate about what you're doing. If the passion is there, it'll keep you going on days that you don't want to get out of bed. And if
Okay,
that's
so
not, then you're going to give up at some point.
lots of passion. Honestly, I think what you're saying at the end almost sums up what you've just done in the last 60 minutes for us, Bhavika. Lots of authenticity, lots of honesty, lots and lots of passion seeping through your talk. So really thankful. You've been very honest. You've been very generous in sharing so many ideas, so many tips, and you really helped me rethink branding and design in so many ways. I had no idea this is how brands are thought about and identified. So lots of learning and lots of inspiration from you today, Bhavika. Thank you so much.
So glad.
This has been a terrific learning experience, and look forward to connecting with you very, very soon, Bhavika. Thanks, guys, for all your questions. Going to allow Bhavika to sign off. If you want to say something to close, feel free to.
Thank you so much for having me. And it was lovely sharing. I mean, I feel a lot of it I hadn't actually verbalized. So it was lovely sharing everything with you and everyone interested.